بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحت كل عصام اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعام اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفئ بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأهوال متواضعا اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائه ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرعت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته وكم من فادهم من البلاء أقلته وكم من إثار وقيته وكم من مكروه دفعته وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وقسرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد آمالي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بخيانتها ومطالي يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك ألا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور أطوفا إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى وأسأده على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاءك وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك أذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ذري وفكني من شدي وثاقي يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد ما انتوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولهج به لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيت أو تبعد من أدنيت أو تشرد من آويت أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمت وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة وبشكرك مادحة وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارح سات إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنا ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك أنك يا كريم يا رب. وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثه يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته، فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الضليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها أذج وأبكي، لعليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن سيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي. صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك، وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك. أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك، فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأذجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج العاملين، ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولا أنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يذج إليك ضجيجا معمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تعلمه النار وهو يعمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يهرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في إتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما آملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاهديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأن تجل ثناؤك قلت مبتدعا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنته أخفيته أو أظهرته وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جواره وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت وأن توفر هذي من كل خير أنزلت أو إحسان فضلت أو بر تنشره أو رزق تبسطه أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك ركي يا من بيده ناسيتي يا عليما بذري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمالي عندك مقبولا حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي يا من إليه شكوت أهوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قو على خدمتك جواره واشدد على العزيمة جوانه وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في اتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرع إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبادرين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو من ذنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد ومن كادني فكد واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نسيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وأخسهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجد لي بجودك واعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك مطيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأقلني عثرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وضمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا ربي نسبت وجهي وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني منايا ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاه البكاء يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النقام يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا. سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
Dr. Sayyid Shabbir Kirmani, respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Surah Fatiha is requested for the Isal Sawab of Marhumeen listed on the screen and for all Marhumeen Al-Fatiha. Hayy Amma Yujibu is requested for the names listed on the screen and for all those in need here and elsewhere. Let's recite together 5 times Amma Yujibu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma Yujibul Mustarra Izada wa Yakshifu Su. 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 أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. At this time, I would like to call Dr. Sayyid Shabbir Kirmani to give tonight's lecture with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
إلا العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير، والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. وقل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، إن الدين عند الله الإسلام. صدق الله العلي العظيم. زينوا مجالسكم بالصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman here in Florida or across the globe, wherever you may be hearing my voice, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question: what is the power of Islamic spirituality? And another question alongside that: what is the responsibility of Islamic spirituality? When we come to understanding Islam's philosophy and the spirituality that Islam gives us in our lives, as per the Quran, as per the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a tremendous power that exists in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's teachings. There's a tremendous power that exists in haqq. There's a tremendous power that exists in the truth. Tonight, continuing and bringing together some of the pieces of our puzzle that we've been discussing in the last few weeks and Thursday nights, I want to bring this together to help us understand a few things together, collectively. That is, what is Islam's essence of Islamic philosophy, and how does that translate into Islamic spirituality? What's the responsibility of that? How can we elevate ourselves spiritually? And how can we also retain that spirituality in our lives once we implement it in our lives? To this end, I want to look at what are some of the things that the spiritual mystics, some of the urafa have said in order to raise your spirituality in your levels. The second element is, how is this possibly even a test that maybe you get some spirituality in your life, but do not think that, oh, I got spirituality now, I will have spirituality forever. There's things that you need to be careful about. And what is it that the Quran teaches about this? And the next element is, how is it that someone can come on the right path and end up on the wrong path? And vice versa, how can someone be on the wrong path and end up on the right path? What is that relationship to spirituality as per the teachings of Islam? This is our agenda, of course, for this Thursday night, inshallah. Wherever you are, here in Florida or across the globe, from the bottom of your heart, send a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. At the first level, what is this concept of elevating ourselves spiritually. There's a power in the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a power in the nature and the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you and I tap into that power, we can go very far in life. Either in the battlefield of life, that is in our work, our school, and other aspects of life, or beyond that. So for example, you may find that there are certain people who are very tuned into their goals in life. Some people are very tuned into their goals, for example, athletes, sportsmen, people who are in the area of sports, men and women. They are so dialed into their area that they, for example, in basketball, they'll take 500 to 1,000 shots a day, practicing every single day. I remember they said with respect to Kobe Bryant, he was trying to see how can he get ahead of other basketball players. So he said that most people do 2 practices a day. Most professional athletes, they do a morning one and an evening one. He said that if I fine-tune my timing, I can sneak in or add an extra one. When? If I get up way earlier than everybody else, around 4 or 5 in the morning, I can get one workout in before the kids and the wife wake up. Then I can spend some time with them. Then I can go for a midday workout and then practice again. And then for a third element, I can go in the evening again. So he said, based on this, I can get way further. If you go to Silicon Valley, you'll find certain investors, certain entrepreneurs, they have their calendar dialed in to up to 30 seconds. Every 30 seconds to every minute, they know what they're going to be doing. That's how much they've dialed in, because they have certain goals that they are pursuing. Similarly, on the spiritual journey, we should be dialed in. What do you mean? What do I mean? I should not be wasting time to elevate myself. I should not be wasting time. I'll give you an example. It's said that Allama Tabatabai, Sahib Tafsir al-Mizan, as you know, one of our great urafa and one of the great scholars, he used to write a page. Now imagine someone who's dedicated over 40 years of their life to the Quran and tafsir. He used to write a whole page and he didn't put the dots on the letters. You know, like there's, for example, the letters like ba and ta and tha, or for example, sheen and the likes. He didn't put the dots on the first pass. He would write all of the writings, finish the page, and after he finished the page, he would go back and put the dots. They said, Agha, isn't this cumbersome? Isn't this difficult? Isn't this very hard for you to do, that you're writing out all of this and then you go back and put the dots? He said, I have calculated that when I go through this process versus the traditional method, I save 2 minutes time, every page. So he was so dialed in not to waste a moment in his expedition and his journey on this tafsir. So similarly, in our journey in pursuit to Allah, how dialed in are we in terms of our focus? In fact, Imam Ali alayhi salam in his letter, he would tell his deputies, when you write a letter using the public treasury's money, don't go on long, elaborate detours. Get to the point quickly. You're spending the people's money. Don't waste their paper. Get to the point quickly. Say Salamu Alaikum and get to the point. So their people on the path of justice and truth are dialed in terms of where they're trying to get to, number one. Number two, what are some things that can help you and I elevate? Now remember, you and I may elevate. Inshallah, you'll elevate. But once you elevate, that's not the end of the journey. For example, even in the realm of sports, once you get to the peak, you have to stay at the peak. You have to maintain the peak. That's why in certain sports, people like, tennis, certain athletes, I don't want to start taking names, but certain ones that you know, the Federers and Nadals of the world, they were at the peak for a long time. And so once you get there, how long do you stay there? Consistency in that matters as well. Similarly in the spiritual journey, the consistency matters, how high you get and how long you stay there on that journey. So what are some things that you can do to elevate yourself? For example, there's examples. One of our great scholars, Agha Kashmiri was his name, Abdul Karim Kashmiri. He was also one of the students of Allama Qadi Tabatabai. You know, Allama Qadi Tabatabai was the mentor of every major arif of the 20th century, they say, including Allama Tabatabai, Sahib Tafsir al-Mizan, his cousin or his relative, Ayatullah Bahjat, and one of these was Agha Kashmiri, who I'm mentioning here. Agha Kashmiri was a very high mystic. They asked him one day, what is something that we can do to elevate ourselves spiritually? He was very little in speech. He was very limited in speech. He didn't talk much. And so, he said, if you want to know, I'll tell you the following. By the way, one of the things the Urafa practice is to control their speech. Because one of the things that the ulama say is, one of the biggest causes of vice, one of the biggest causes of sin in our life is the tongue. Through ghibat and other things and buhtan and things that emerge from the tongue, you need to be very careful. So they would say, guard your tongue. There are some narrations that say some of the companions of Rasulullah, when they heard him say how many sins can come just from the tongue, they would keep stones in their mouth all day. So if they really needed to say something, you would have to take out all the stones to say something. They didn't just jump to say something. So they were that muhtat, they were that protected, and they would do ihtiyat in their progression there. Anyways, eventually at this point, in this precaution, they asked Agha Kashmiri, is there something that you can say in how someone can raise themselves? He said, okay. He said, recite the zikr of Yunus. He said, what? La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. He said, recite it. Now sometimes we get ourselves in trouble by asking something. Sometimes you take the advice, and sometimes the reason you ask is sincere, and sometimes you just ask without asking, or without thinking sometimes. Example, the story of Surah Baqarah, when Banu Israel kept asking Musa, ask your God, which type of cow? What kind of cow? What color should it be? So Allah said, bright yellow. He said, okay. Eventually, he said, what should be old or young? Allah said, neither old, neither young. So the more they kept asking, the more conditions Allah added. Similarly, sometimes you don't want to know the answer. So Allah said, recite it as much as you can. Agha Kashmiri said. He said, no, Agha, tell us a number, we need a number. He said, minimum, recite it 400 times. So minimum, 400 times. He said, how much should we actually recite it? He said, if you really want to know, you should recite it 2,000 times a day. And so, that's one way to raise yourself spiritually, with understanding, and it's a sense of presence of heart. So these are things that have been mentioned to raise ourselves spiritually. But coming to the next element of what I wanted to mention is, this journey to progression towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you and I refine ourselves, don't be surprised if amazing things happen in your life. But you don't do it, and I don't do it, and we don't do it so we get those kamalat in our lives. You see, by virtue of refining ourselves, Allah will give us in our life. Allah will give us amazing things. But those don't come by means of me saying that, Ya Allah, I want these karamat, and I want these mu'jizat, and I want this ability to do this, and therefore Allah gives it. That's not the right way. The way is to have absolute trust in Allah, dedication to Allah, and faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will give you those from where you did not even imagine. So the example is of Nabi Yusuf. Nabi Yusuf was given the gift of the ability to interpret dreams like his father was. But after he passed the test with Zulaykha, it was not something that just happened out of the blue. He passed the test. It wasn't his niyat in order to get this gift. Ya Allah, if I do this, then you'll give me this gift. But there's another angle to the story. And the angle of the story is what happened afterwards. One of the things that the ulama say, and the mufassirin say, in the story of Yusuf is a story of ups and downs and different stories from different angles, depending on what perspective you look at it from. So there's a moment where Yusuf, he is the finance minister of Egypt. And he sees his brothers and his father coming from the distance. And now, he knows that that's his father. So he gets up and decides to proceed towards his father. But in that moment, the narrations say he had a moment of hesitation where he thought, that's my father, I must respect him. But I know that's my father. These people who are under me, I'm the finance minister, the people of Egypt who are my employees or subordinates, they don't know that. And if they see me running out of respect towards someone, will they think less of me or something? It's just an internal dialogue and thought. As soon as he just hesitated for a moment, and then he proceeded again. He moved forward on towards his father. And at that point in time, he noticed from his hand a light emanated and came out. Jibreel descended. He said, Yusuf asks, what is this light that just left my hand? He said, Yusuf, there was a moment just now you were having an inner dialogue, an inner battle. That should I go towards the presence of my father with respect and dignity the way he deserves? Or you thought for a moment, what will the people think? I'm a finance minister, even though I must do this as a prophet. He didn't do anything wrong. He knows this is the right thing. But just because of public perception, you thought about this for a moment. Allah took out the nur of nubuwwat from your line. It's going into your brother's line, Binyamin. And so the idea was, it's not ma'siyah, it's tarki awla. But the idea is that Yusuf is a very high caliber, but there's still this journey going on. So now comes the next element of what I wanted to mention to you, and that is this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Araf, verse 175 and 176, He tells us as someone, and this is something to know from the stories of the Quran. Sometimes Allah has given a very quick, short, potent story, and the tafsir, the mufassirin have added, such as Ayatullah, for example, Alama Tabatabai, and others that you'll find in terms of the dialogue. So Allah says here, shall I tell them and know about that person, the discussion about that person who Allah had given from him his gifts. Allah had given his ni'mah. And yet, he turned away from them. And yet, he misused them. Yet, he abused them. And Allah says this individual was no different than a dog. Who's this person? The name in the Quran is not mentioned. But in riwayat, there's a few names given. But one of the names that is given for this individual, according to many scholars, is a man by the name of Balam bin Ba'ur. Who is this person? Balam bin Ba'ur or Balam bin Ba'ura, both names have been given. He was an individual who was a scholar during the time of Musa and Fir'aun, during the time of Banu Israel, I should say, and the time of Fir'aun. And he was someone who Allah had given him knowledge, Allah had given him ilm, and Allah had given him karamat. He had the ability to do karamat and used to do small miracles and things that were amazing to people. They would be baffled and astonished. And so, but Allah says that he misused, he abused his talent, the gift that Allah had given him. What happened? Fir'aun found out that he had this ability. And you'll find that this still exists till this day. The test of scholarship is one of the highest tests. That if Allah has given you knowledge, wisdom, and abilities, do you use it, misuse it, and abuse it? There's ulama al-khair and ulama al-su, as you know. There's not all ulama are good. And you'll find numerous examples of this throughout the Quran as well. Anyways, if you remember the example I gave in Jum'ah of, for example, Haman and Qarun, the wealthy one, and Haman, the scholar, who was the wrong scholar. Anyways, Balam bin Ba'ur had been given karamat, and his du'as used to be accepted, and he had a knowledge that had been given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Fir'aun heard that he had this ability to do different karamat, and so he wanted this on his side, and he wanted to use this power for his purposes. So he sent a messenger to Balam bin Ba'ur, and he said, Balam, Fir'aun says for you to make a dua, make a prayer against Musa. Against Musa. Now at that point, he's good. He says, no, I can't do this. I cannot do a dua, a prayer against a prophet of Allah, a messenger of Allah. How? No way. He says, no, I refuse. Now, you see, there's these examples even during the time of Muawiyah and the time of Imam Ali. There were people who were companions, quote unquote, and they would come, Muawiyah would say, take this riwayah and make this attributed to somebody else. One that's in honor of Imam Ali, or one that's against someone else, make it in line of Imam Ali, make it for Imam Ali alayhi salam. For example, the different verse of وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. The amongst man is one who sells his soul to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Say this is for Muawiyah or Banu Umayyah, although of course it's for Imam Ali alayhi salam. And the likes, or for example, say this is for Abdurrahman ibn Muljim, for example, na'udhu billah, the one who killed Imam Ali alayhi salam. And all these types of things. And so they would say, how much do you want? 100,000 dirham. They would say, no way. 200,000 dirham. No way. 250, 300, 500,000, up until eventually they would say, okay, give me the pen. They would write it and take the cash and leave. It would sell. But this was not new. Balaam bin Ba'ur tells us as happening before. So what happened? So eventually, Fir'aun sending messages to Balaam, and he's saying, no, I cannot misuse this gift that Allah has given me for the wrong. Surah Araf, 175, 176. And then eventually, the narration says, he sent a messenger to his wife, Balaam's wife, and said, talk to your husband and convince him. You'll get all the wealth, all the luxuries. You name it, you'll have it. Maybe she also didn't accept the first time, but second time. Eventually, she bought in. And when she bought in, she got him to buy in. And so what happened? He said he was going to go on the mountain and do dua against Musa. He had a mule with him, a donkey with him. The narration says as he began to climb the mount, the donkey wasn't proceeding forward. And he said, hey, what are you doing? Hurry up, let's go. It's as if it was stopped. The narrations say at that point in time, the mule had the ability to converse and said that the angels are telling me not to proceed on this journey to curse a prophet. So the narrations say Balaam, who was intoxicated by wanting all of this, he eventually beat that animal and beat the animal to the point that the animal died. And he walked up to the mount himself. Now, when he walked up to the mount himself, he was beginning to do dua against Musa, that as soon as he began to do dua against him, everything that was coming out of his mouth was against Fir'aun and his men. And eventually, the people, Fir'aun's men, are saying, what's going on? We told you to curse Musa, you're cursing us? He says, it's as if God's controlling my tongue. I don't have the ability. Eventually, when he came down from the mount, he came to Fir'aun. And Fir'aun said, what's the meaning of this? Now here's another lesson. If you read, some of our scholars have talked about this, and even the Jewish scholars of the past, and the people of Ahlul Kitab even mention this. You know, sometimes we commit a sin, right? We do something wrong. We do something. This is in ilm al-akhlaq and adab and also Islamic spirituality. Sometimes you commit a sin, and what's the second biggest sin? One is shirk, number one. Number two is لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا. Allah says in the Quran, do not lose hope in the mercy of Allah. You know what happens is, sometimes we make a mistake and we go down a slippery slope. What is the slippery slope? We say, oh, I committed this sin, so if I've done this, I might as well keep going. I've already sinned. And that's why in the other faiths, in the Abrahamic faiths, you'll find that scholars even said, if you commit this sin, there are degrees and darajat of sins, that even if you commit one rung of the ladder, don't keep going down the ladder. Stop right there. It gets worse. So for example, Balaam said, look, I wanted to curse Musa, but this came out of my mouth. These words came out of my mouth. I didn't have control. But then he did something even worse. What he did was, well, I've already sold my deen. I've already sold my religion. I've already sold it, so might as well get my money's worth. So he said, I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know Fir'aun, to destroy society, to destroy the religion of people, to destroy the spirituality. And so he started telling him things. He said, one of the things he said was, I want you to get the most attractive women of society and get them to get dressed up and ornate, and have them stroll around the young men of society, and have an environment where the society is not very cognizant and conscious of haya and all of these things. And so he started telling him all of these things. The point being the following, that Allah, in a short quick story in the Quran, in 2 verses, He mentions a powerful aspect of someone who was given Allah's gifts and they misused it and they sold out. Similarly, you and I, Allah may have given us some gifts. Either for some people it may be wealth, for some people it may be intelligence, for some people it may be ability to speak, for some people it may be ability to help others. It may be 1,000 things that Allah has given you. Art, whatever it may be. But the question is, do you use that for the right purposes or the wrong purposes? Spirituality has the ability to elevate you and I, but it must be used the right way. Remember, on the journey to Karbala on a Thursday night, when we remember our marhumin, there were people who were on the path of the righteous, and they left that path. There were people who said, to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they said, Ya Aba Abdullah, we will be with you up until the point that then we cannot be with you anymore. So there were people who were with the Imam up to 9th Muharram, and then they left the Imam. There were people who were on the path, who were on the right path. There were people who were with Imam Ali alayhi salam, his father, on the side of his father. But they went to the other side, they went to the wrong side. And you'll find these examples. Abdurrahman ibn Muljam, as you know, Abdurrahman, the one who killed Imam Ali himself, in earlier battles he was fighting with Imam Ali alayhi salam. And Imam Ali himself said that, what will that day be like when you kill me? He said, may I die before that day. But eventually he killed Imam Ali alayhi salam, Ibn Muljam himself, right? You'll find Umar ibn Sa'ad. Whether he was on the right path or the wrong path, it's a longer discussion, but at least his father was on, they say, was one of the 10 granted paradise by Rasulullah, Ashra Mubashara, Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas. He had all the gifts. Nuh alayhi salam's own son, he's born into the house of Nuh alayhi salam, his son is not on the right path. The Quran says, إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِ إِنَّهُ عَمَلٌ غَيْرُ صَالِحٍ. He's not from you, he's not one of yours. And then there was others. Who? Zuhair bin Qayn. Zuhair was on the side. In the battles with Imam Ali, he was against Imam Ali. But in the battle of Karbala, he came to the side of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. As the poet says, Zuhair was one of those people who was taking arrows on his chest when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was reciting Salah on Yawm Ashura. Mahve namaz ran mein Saeed o Zuhair hain. महवे नमाज रन में सईद व ज़ुहैर हैं, नुसरत की इस नमाज में नियत हुसैन है. He says that he's in a state, they're taking arrows on their chest. And he's in a state of ibadah and worship. And when he's at that point in time, when he took these arrows, Imam Hussein came to him as soon as he finished the salah, says, جَعْلَكَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ. May Allah make you amongst those who establish salah, those who establish the prayers. So the dua of Sayyidus Shuhada. So the question should always be that, do you end your life on the right path? Do you live on the right path to the end of your life, to every moment in time? This is what the story of Karbala teaches us. This is what the story of the Ahlul Bayt teach us. Ajrukum ala Allah. It's Thursday night, a night to remember those. And one of the people to remember, for example, they say are the companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who Imam Hussein alayhi salam himself said that neither my father or my brother had companions like me. The dedication of the companions of Karbala. Ajrukum ala Allah. Azadaro do jumle कहते हैं कि इमाम के असहाब में से ऐसे लोग भी थे, मुस्लिम इब्न औसजा जैसे लोग भी थे, और हबीब इब्न मज़ाहिर जैसे लोग भी थे. कहते हैं हबीब वो बचपन का दोस्त जो इमाम हुसैन का बचपन का दोस्त था. एक मंज़र ये आया कि जब रफ़क़ा और दोस्त अहबाब सब मक्तल में गए, जब हबीब गए, इमाम हुसैन का पुराना दोस्त, जब उन्होंने देखा क्या मंज़र होगा कि जब इतना करीबी साथी मक्तल में गया होगा, जब हबीब गिरा तो फिर कहते हैं कि असहाब उनके पास आए और उनसे पूछा आखिरी मराहिल में कि क्या कोई आखिरी गुजारिश है, कोई आखिरी वसीयत है. ये करबला वाले हैं, उन्होंने क्या कहा? रिवायतें कहती हैं, मक्तल बयान करता है कि उन्होंने बस इशारा किया और एक जुमला कहा, ऊसीकुम बिहाज़ा, ऊसीकुम बिहाज़ा. इसका ख्याल रखना, इसका ख्याल रखना. किसका ख्याल रखना? उन्होंने इमाम हुसैन की तरफ इशारा किया और कहा फर्जंद बतूल का ख्याल रखना. लानतुल्लाहि अलल कौमिज़ ज़ालिमीन व सयअलमुल लज़ीना ज़लमू अय्य मुनक़लिबिन यन्क़लिबून. इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन. सल्लल्लाहु अलैका या रसूलल्लाह, सल्लल्लाहु अलैका या अमीरल मुमिनीन, सल्लल्लाहु अलैकी या फ़ातिमत ज़हरा सय्यदत निसाए आलमीन, सल्लल्लाहु अलैका या हसन अल-मुज्तबा. अस्सलामु अलल हुसैन जमीअन. अस्सलामु अलल हुसैन व अला अली इब्न अल-हुसैन व अला औलादिल हुसैन व अला अस्हाबिल हुसैन. Ya Allah, accept this ibadah. Ya Allah, allow us to learn from the Quran, from the teachings of the Quran, as well as the Ahlul Bayt, as well as the ulama who are on the path of the Ahlul Bayt. Ya Allah, alleviate the suffering that's going on in the world. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman and allow us to be amongst his companions when he returns. A final request to please recite Surah Al-Fatiha for your marhameen, for our marhameen, for the sponsors marhameen, and for the marhameen of all those who make these programs possible, and especially for anyone who does not have someone to recite a Fatiha for them in this night. Surah Al-Mubarak Al-Fatiha ma'as salawat. Bismillah.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وحينا حتى تسكنه أرزك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا إمام حسن إمام حسين سيد الشباب الجنة. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفة الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله. السلام عليك يا عيسى محمد حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا صار الله وابن صار ولد موتور. أشهد أنك قد قمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فارزت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. أشهد أنك كنت نور في الأسلاب الشامخات والحرام المطهرة. لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من دهمة ثيابها. وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين. وأشهد أنك الإمام البر والتقي والرضي والزكي والهادي والمهدي. وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وعلم الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا. وأشهد أن الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسوله إني بكم مؤمن وبها بكم موقن بالشرائع الدين وخواتيم عملي وقلبي لقلبكم سلم لأمركم متبعون. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. زارت علي بن الحسين. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها الشهيد وابن الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم لعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضي الدين. زهرة تمام شهداء كربلاء. السلام عليكم يا أولياء، السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباء، والسلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله ووداء، والسلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي زكي الناصي، السلام عليك يا أنصار أبي عبد الله ببي أنتم وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما فيها ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. السلام زارة أبو الفضل العباس عليه السلام. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك ابن سيد الوسين، السلام عليك أيها العبد الصالح، السلام على العبد الصالح المطيع لله لرسوله، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين محمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد موسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان. الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك إمام الإنس والجان، السلام عليك يا مظهر الإيمان، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا إمام زماننا هذا أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وزهورة رحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.